So I've just got a little bit to read and then we'll get going with the presentations. Loveresearch.info is an initiative to support the love research community by disseminating research and information related to love and romantic relationships. It provides a monthly email update of the latest research and information, an annual symposium such as this one, and opportunities to advertise or promote on its website or monthly update. There are currently 62 subscribers to the monthly update, which is a testament to the interest love and romantic relationships garners. This is the second symposium hosted by loveresearch.info, and we are lucky to have 9 presenters from 6 countries here today to present on their research. One presenter, unfortunately, has had to pull out. Things should progress pretty easily. Each presenter will have 12 minutes to present, followed by 3 minutes for questions. Presenters will share screen during their presentation and will stop sharing screen to answer questions. If people have questions, please raise your hand and I will call on you to ask your question once the presentation is finished. If you would prefer, you can write your question in the chat and I can read it out. Other than that, it should function like a stock standard Zoom meeting. We are recording, so keep that in mind and please have yourself muted during presentations. Also note, this year we'll have the first loveresearch.info Student Presentation Award. A panel of 3 early career researchers will be assessing presentations and the winner will receive a US $100 prepaid debit card and a copy of The New Psychology of Love, as well as having their name recorded on the loveresearch.info website. There are 4 students being considered for this award. So if anyone is interested in signing up to the monthly update, visit loveresearch.info to sign up. All right, everyone, that's all I have to say. So let's get started with the first presentation. Marta, are you ready?
Hi, Adam. Thank you. Yes, I am ready. Okay. So as Adam said, my name is Marta, and I come from University of Wrocław at Poland. And today I'll have the pleasure to present and talk a bit about our research. The most recent research we've conducted regarding romantic love is the validation of a TLS-15. And I would like to say a couple of words how we validated it and also encourage all of you to use our scale because today, as of today, it has been officially published in the Archives of Sexual Behavior, which I'm really happy for. Okay, so a few words about triangular love theory. It was first introduced by Sternberg in 1986. And he said that there are 3 phases of love, including intimacy, passion, and commitment. And he followed his theory by inventing and validating a triangular love scale, which composes of 45 items, 15 items from each of these 3 subscales. And as you can see, the response range from 1 to 9 with answers to questions such as, I feel that my partner really understands me. This is a part of item from intimacy subscale. My relationship with my partner is passionate. This is an item from passionate subscale. And commitment, an exemplary item, reads, I view my relationship with my partner as permanent. And in a series of 4 studies, we've tried to figure out if there's a way to shorten this subscale and the whole scale as well. And why, I will briefly talk about it, introducing a pilot study we've conducted. Okay, so let's begin with pilot study. In this pilot study, I did a literature review in which I found every paper that used triangular love scale, either change or unchanged, original. And in the end, I ended up with 232 papers. And out of those 232 papers, the majority used a substantially different subscales or even a scale from the original TLS-45. As much as 45 of those studies used a shortened version of the scale, and some picked like 10 items, some picked 15 items, some picked 28 items. It all varied, and we don't like it because it impacts the generalizability of the results and the comparability. We can't assume that each of those subscales invented ad hoc for a given study is the same as the original. So the idea was to try to find a subscale and scale that would be shorter, but yet reliable and that would carry the same information and that would actually investigate and the underlying construct of love. So how we did it? In study 1, we reanalyzed secondary data of Sorokovsky et al. 2021. It was conducted on 11,000 people, but among those 7,103 were in a relationship. So we analyzed this data set and run a confirmatory factor analysis, item response theory, and try to figure out the basic psychometric properties of this TLS-45. And based on that analysis, we figure out 5 items of each of the subscales, intimacy, passion, and commitment. Those in green were eventually chosen for the TLS-15. And also, what is important, we've shortened the response range from 1 to 9 to 1 to 5. And why, I will explain in a moment why this is important when speaking about study 4. Okay, so we had 15 items, but we did not know if those items can stand alone because we analyzed those items in response to other 45 items. So the idea was to conduct study 2, in which we've recruited 307 people in relationship and administered the TLS-15 and the same statistical approach, IRT, CFA, and basic psychometric properties to figure out if TLS-15, well, is a good subscale. And I won't bore you with details, but the answer is yes. It was good enough to proceed with study 3, in which we aim to investigate if this TLS is reliable across time. So we recruited 413 participants in relationship. We gave them both TLS-15 and TLS-45. And after 2 weeks, we invited another 256 people from the first wave. This number was based on the power analysis. So we knew that not all participants in wave 1 would participate in wave 2. So that's why we've shot to recruit more participants in wave 1. And the same statistical approach, and we've compared reliability and validity of those TLS-15 and TLS-45. And it turned out that, yeah, TLS-15 is reliable across time and is comparable to TLS-45. So we knew it, and in the last step, we wanted to figure out if TLS-15 can be used in cross-cultural studies. So we conducted study 4, and this was a large cross-cultural study. And in that study, we focused on several things, including love experiences, obviously, mate attraction, and physical attractiveness. And physical attractiveness was already published, and 2 more papers are also coming along in the nearest future. But first of all, I would like to thank all of the collaborators who participated and who helped with this study 4. This was a massive effort of many, many people, and we wouldn't be able to achieve it if it wasn't for all of those 404 scholars. And as we translated the survey into 42 languages, I would like to thank all of our collaborators in their native language. Unfortunately, I'm not a polyglot, so I wouldn't be able to spell out all those things. But yeah, big thanks. And probably you might find your thank you in your native language on this list and also here, because it didn't fit on the previous slide. A little bit about timetable. We conducted this study in 2021, and we've ended up collecting data in September 2021. And in the end, we've managed to collect data from 118,715 participants from 175 countries. And what's important from statistical point of view is that we managed to collect data from 97 countries with at least 30 participants. And here you can see a map from which we had participants, and those yellow spots depict countries from which we had at least 30 people. Okay, so we've conducted the study, and we, again, the same statistical approach. We compared the item characteristics to the whole scale. We checked 3 factors, which I mentioned: intimacy, passion, and commitment, and also by factor. And we've ended up with the simple answer that, yeah, TLS can be cross-culturally used and successfully used. So we validated 37 linguistic versions of the TLS 15. And as you might have noticed, we had 42 languages translated versions of the scale, but unfortunately, 5 languages did not reach the minimum to be included and to reliably establish if they're equivalent with each other. And I also mentioned why, or I didn't mention why, but I mentioned that we did trim the response scale from 1 to 9 to 1 to 5. And the reason is that 9 points might have been too much. And here you can see item thresholds. And on the right side, you can see TLS 45, the same item from passion subscale. And on the left, TLS 15 with 5 response scale. The scale is much more ordered, with 5 responses to be chosen from instead of 9 responses. And in our next step, we'll try to figure out the predictors of romantic love experiences across the large sample. We'll be using data from study 4, and also we'll try to conduct the study on representative samples, the main limitation of our study 4. Okay, thank you very much for listening to me. Here are my contact information. If you were eager to join our cross-culture team, cross-culture family, then please do visit my website. There's information how to do it. There's an online form, which I encourage you to sign up if you want to conduct some cross-culture studies with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Marta. Very interesting. We've got a couple of questions. Could we start with Abby, please?
Oh, no, that was just an applause.
Oh, is it? Is that an applause too, Caitlyn? Okay, sorry. Anybody with questions? Doesn't look like we have any questions. Thanks very much, Marta.
Thank you.
Next we have Diego.
Okay, good morning or good evening, everyone. Let me share my screen here with you. Give me just 1 second, please. I just need to figure out how to share the screen. Stop broadcast. Just 1 second, please. Are you seeing my screen?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with you guys today and have the opportunity to share our little study with you. I'm a student from St. Mary's University, and I'm working under the supervision of Dr. Marianne Fisher and Rosemarie Sokol from American Psychological Association. And the name of our study is I Love Them, I Love Them Not, Reasons for Keeping Gifts from Ex-Lovers. So this is our little agenda for today. And before I start, I'd like to invite you to imagine this scenario, okay? So you are starting a new relationship and you have high hopes that will become like a long-term something long-term, right? You both get along very well together and you spend quality time together. And then one day you notice that your partner is using a necklace around his neck that they've always worn that. And you decide to ask him about it. And then you just say, okay, this jewelry is very beautiful. Like, is there a story behind it? And then your partner answers, yes, it was a gift from my ex-girlfriend. And I really like the necklace. My question is, how would you feel about it? What kind of perceptions, I see Aidan smile, so what kind of perceptions will you develop about your partner? What kind of expectations you have about the relationship? And this is what our study is about, because the background shows that gifts influence people's emotions. And we also know that when someone is giving a gift for someone else, the giver is giving not only the gift, but a part of themselves for the recipient. We also know that interpersonal experiences during the childhood, for example, as availability of caregivers and responsiveness, shapes individuals' perceptions, self-concept, and expectations about relationship. This is explained by the attachment theory, right?
Sorry,
And
Diego, can I just interrupt? Are you, we're just seeing the first slide still. Are you progressing through all the slides?
yeah, I'm in
Okay,
the
sorry,
background.
we're not sharing screen quite properly yet.
Oh, for real?
Yeah, sorry about that. I should have interrupted a bit earlier.
No, no worries. What are you seeing now? My
The front
canvas?
slide, yeah, your canvas.
Okay, but the website or the presentation?
You can stop sharing a screen and try again. Because it looked like as if it was frozen.
So let's stop sharing. Screen broadcasting. Okay. Okay, good. And screen again. I'm sorry for that, guys. What are you seeing now? The
We're
background
on a
slide?
different slide now. Can you just go
Background?
forward a slide just to see if it changes?
What about now?
No, that hasn't changed.
It hasn't changed?
No.
Okay, so are you seeing the Canvas website for now?
Yes, we are.
And if I change the slide on the website, are you able to see the slides? I'm changing the slides now.
No, not at all, I'm afraid.
Yeah, it's frozen. So,
Yeah,
do
Marta,
you
are
have?
you sharing it all? Because I can see and others can see your box on the bottom right.
No, I'm not sharing anything.
Oh,
It's just,
dear.
I
So
think
let
it
me.
was frozen on Diego's screen while I was this last speaking. That's why he sees me and you all see me.
Diego, I also use Canva, and I can, if you make me collaborator, I can download your slides for you because I have Canva Pro, and then I can send them to you, and maybe you can swap the presentation. Like, for example, I can do mine now. And
I'm
then
using the Pro as well. So let
okay,
me
good.
try. I've
You can
downloaded
download
the
them.
presentation.
Yeah.
I've downloaded the presentation. And should I
Okay.
go here on share screen or
Yeah,
let
then you can
me,
share it again. I think the problem is with the website.
is it with the website? Okay,
I
good.
think so. Yeah, because now we see movement in your screen. But
And now I see
What
Janneke in the box at the bottom right.
right, yeah. Oh no.
It's working now?
No, we
no.
see your files and we see me.
But maybe it's a
Oh.
good idea. Can you just share to Janneke your presentation? Then she might be just sharing the screen and doing the flipping.
Yeah, that's
instead of
also
you.
fine. I'll be your secretary. That's fine.
So what should I do? Should I send you the presentation?
Yeah, if you want, or anyone that you have an email, or can you share docs in the chat? No, right? No. I mean, you have an
No,
email
what
from,
is?
You can email it to me and I'll email
yeah.
it to Janneke.
You have an email from Adam.
I'm so sorry for that, guys.
No,
Okay,
that's all right.
Adam.
This is probably not your fault.
So, okay, I will send you the presentation. Authenticator. Okay.
Also, Marian is here. She can help. Hi, Marian.
Hello.
Give me a second, Adam, please.
Yeah, no worries. I was
Download.
riveted by your talk, so I want to really get it. Yeah.
Okay, I'll have to download that again. We're getting there. We're getting there. So download PDF. Okay, downloading.
The talk will be worth it, Diego. You're going to have so much fun doing it.
Downloading. And I will send get info, share. Outlook. Love research. Presentation. It's already.
No worries. As soon
It's
as
on
I
its
get
way.
that, I'll forward that on to Janneke.
So
It's
it's,
crossing the ocean.
if it's in your inbox, Adam, like I don't mind doing it, but you can also share it, right?
Oh, yeah. That's good thinking.
Yeah. I mean, I like
Yeah.
the international approach, but you can do it. I believe
There
in
we
you.
All
Did you
right.
receive?
Yes, I did. I just received it, so I'm just going to download it now.
Thank you.
All right. I'm going to share screen. Can you see that now?
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So just tell me when to click.
So let's go for. Would you like me to start again?
Yes,
Or-
please.
Okay, so let's start again. I'm so sorry for that, guys. Okay, so I'm Diego Rodrigues. I'm a student at St. Mary's University, and I work under the supervision of Dr. Marianne Fisher. And this is the name of our study. I love them, I love them not. Reasons for keeping gifts from ex-lovers. So let's go for the second slide. This is our little agenda for tonight, for today.
Oh.
And to start to share our insights from our study with you, I'd like you to imagine yourself in this scenario again. I know it may be not so comfortable to imagine, but keep that in mind. Like, you're trying to start a new relationship with someone. You have high hopes in this relationship that will become something long-term. It's not just for fun. You both are getting along very well together. You spend quality time together. And then someday you notice that your partner is using a necklace around his neck that they've always worn that. And you decide to ask, right? Oh, this is a beautiful jewelry. What is the story behind it? And then your partner decides to be honest with you and say, yeah, this is very beautiful. I really like it. It was a gift from my ex-girlfriend. And the question is, like, how would you feel about it? What kind of perceptions would you develop about your partner, about the relationship? Would that situation change your expectations on the relationship? And then you can go for the second slide, please, Adam. So we decided to run the study about it, about the connection between gift giving and attachment style, because we know that gifts influence behavior, influence emotions. And according to Belk, when you're giving a gift for someone, you're not giving just the gift, just the object. You're giving a part of yourself for someone else. And we also know, according to the attachment theory, that childhood experiences, interpersonal experiences during the childhood, like responsiveness and availability of caregivers, can shape individuals' perceptions and self-concept. And all of these together can influence the way you will perceive this situation about your partner gifts. So can you move to the next slide, please? So based on that, and I have to say that this is a real life situation, this is a real case that inspired this study. We decided to, first of all, like, investigate in two different studies. Like, we used the study one to identify who kept gifts from ex-lovers and what kind of gifts they kept. And we used the inputs from study one to run the study two to identify what kind of feelings people have about EPGS, which is referred to ex-partner gift situation, and how the attachment interacts how the attachment style interacts with this situation. Can you please pass for the next slide? So in the pilot study, study number one, we ran this survey in St. Mary's University for psychology students, and we have like a kind of a decent sample, and we've identified that both males and females kept gifts from ex-lovers, right? The majority of it was females, so 69.8%. And the main reasons for them to keep the gifts are because it's part of their memory, because there's a practical reason for it, and because the gift is a part of their history. we've identified that they don't keep gifts because of the ex-partner, but because of the relationship per se. So based on the inputs from this study, we decided to run a study 2 to identify the feelings and the reasons and how people perceive their situation. So we had like an MTurk sample with the mean age a little bit older. So instead of the university students, we ran the study and the mean age is about 35 to 32 years old for females and males. And the first part of the questionnaire, we asked them about their keeping behavior. Like if they ever kept gifts from ex-lovers, what kind of gifts they have kept and for what reason. And we figured out that there are very similarities between the gifts kept. And once we've identified the gifts they kept, we started to investigate a little bit about how they feel about it and how the attachment style affects that. So we run some vignettes, for example, assuming your current partner has kept gifts from the previous relationship. If they have kept like letters or photographs or sex toys, how would you feel about it? How comfortable would you feel about it? And how comfortable would you feel about the reason they give you for this behavior? And then after identified all these answers, we came up with the EPGS. It's a theory. Actually, you can go for the next slide, Aidan, please. Which is, we have the EPGS on the center. It's like a vicious circle, right? So for example, if you are a person with a secure attachment, if you are exposed to an ex-partner gift situation, due to the secure attachment, you should present a secure behavior, emotional regulation, a trusting attitude. It might strengthen the trust in the relationship, and then it might strengthen a little bit more the secure attachment. But in other hand, if you are a person with an insecure attachment, if you are exposed to an ex-partner gift situation, you should present based on your attachment, like an increasing in your anxiety, a suspicious attitude. You might be feel threatened, and then it might undermine the trust in the relationship, and then it could reinforce the insecure attachment. This is a theory that we came up. It needs a little bit more investigation, but we are planning to run further studies on it. So if you go to the next slide, for the second study, this is a very interesting aspect of it. For the older group, we've identified that men are more propense to keep gifts from previous relationship, and the gifts they tend to keep are photographs and cards, and maybe for obvious reasons, women should keep more jewelry, right? And these are the kind of gifts they both male and female tends to keep from previous relationship. And now let's go for the feelings, which is a very I don't know if it's interesting or obvious stuff. When we asked how comfortable the participant would feel about being exposed to an ex-partner gift situation, men are more insecure about their partners being exposed to an ex-partner gift situation. So it's not new. We are all insecure. It's part of being a man. But no matter what kind of gifts the partner has kept, men tend to present more insecurity about their partner keeping gifts from ex-lovers. So when we go to the next slides, the reason we ask them, we gave them this example, like assuming your romantic partner has kept gifts from past relationship. This makes you feel concerned, so you decide to talk, as the example I gave in the introduction of the presentation. And if assuming that they are completely open and transparent to you, how would you feel about it? And we noticed that they would feel, men tends to feel more uncomfortable if the partner said that it just doesn't feel right to toss the gift away or to put it away. for some reason, I don't know if it's, we believe it's something about the like men's insecure, we are all, and women tend to feel less insecure about their reasons. So let's go for the discussion part of it. And my question is like, I'm a certified life coach. And when I provided this life coach service for my customers, I noticed that it's possible to increase conscientiousness. And with conscientiousness, people should be able to handle a little bit better when they are exposed to this kind of situation. So the discussions we came up is, can conscientiousness help overcome insecure attachment when exposed to an ex-partner gift situation? And can, for example, like a process like life coaching increase conscientiousness to the point to help people achieve a better relationship quality? It's a matter of bringing relationship quality and life satisfaction for people in a scientific manner and in a way that we can help people to enjoy a better lives. So we have some limitations for our study, of course. So we had like a very small sample. We collect our data from just heterosexual couples, and we didn't have the chance yet to dig deeper into the attachment styles. So these are the limitations for the studies. We are still planning if we'll continue with that. And the conclusion is romantic relationship dissolutions are very common, right? And the numbers are increasing every month. So when exposed to relationship dissolution, there is always a chance for splitting resources, which may lead to potential dispute, sometimes even dangerous one between the partners. So it is important, our student is really important to help these couples and these persons to overcome this kind of situation if they want to keep the relationship in a long term. So the more we can help them, according to our discussions and your interpretations of it, the more we help them to increase their conscientiousness, they should be able to better handle ex-partner gift situation. I'd like to thank you a lot. Thank you, Dr. Fisher, for the supervision and for helping me. And thanks, Dr. Sokol, for giving the idea for this study. Thank you so much, guys.
Adam, you're muted.
Sorry, I think we do have a question from Janneke, is that right?
Yes, that's right. Thank you for your presentation, Diego. I really like, and I've never heard research about this. So it's really cool that you're doing it. While you were talking, I was wondering, because you indicated at the beginning that almost 70% of people, or between 60 and 70% of people indicated that they had kept gifts in the past from ex-partners. Yes. So that also makes me wonder, like, probably the keeping itself is actually not the harmful part of it, because almost a lot of people do it. So have you considered that it might not be the keeping, but more the way it was revealed that is actually what is harming the couple? Like, for example, never telling me anything and me finding pictures under the bed. And like, I think that would give me way more anxiety than my partner saying, hey, I like to keep some, like, these are cherished memories. I had a nice relationship. I grew out of it. I like to keep some things. You know, like when you have an honest conversation about it, I think those are very different circumstances and would affect the relationship very differently.
Yes, absolutely. I agree with you, because this is a real life situation that the person involved in this situation decided to run a study about it. And the conclusion we get is that the way the partners approach the situations, it's not only about the behavior of keeping the gifts, but the way you approach the situation, the way you communicate the situation for the partner can interfere if their, let's say, the attachment style, like if the person is an insecure attachment, the way they communicate that can help the person to better handle the situation. But by the end of the day, it's about the people. It's about how the people feel. So if the partner is able to handle the situation and let the current partner know, like, okay, it's not about the ex, it's about the gift, it's important for me, it should be good for the relationship.
Okay, so you address this through the reasons that's how you addressed this, that I'm raising, like this anxious situation. You measure this through the reasons given.
We focus on the reasons, but we didn't focus on how they approach the situation. So I
Yeah,
believe
okay.
this is a great opportunity for us to dig a little bit deeper in the study, because we approached the reasons, but we didn't
Yeah.
approach the way they handle that, like the way they
Okay.
communicate the situation. Thanks so much
Okay.
for that. I'll make a note on it.
Thank you.
Excellent. All right. Thanks very much for that, Diego. We'll move on to the next presentation. So that's Abigail.
Okay, let me go ahead and share my screen. And can you see
Yes, we
my
can.
slides? Perfect.
Do you want to just run forward one just to make sure the slides are actually changing?
Yes, let me do
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
Can you
that
see?
changed. Very good.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect. So thank you all so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here and share with you some of my research that looks at how people change their sense of self as a result of their attachment style, particularly focusing on people who have high attachment anxiety. So as Nicholas Sparks writes in the Notebook, the first time you fall in love, it changes you forever. As this quote illustrates, it's a common notion that people in romantic relationships experience some degree of self-change. Perhaps simply experiencing a relationship is sufficient for some amount of change, but deeper and more profound change comes as a result of partners entwining their sense of selves. Relationships seem to be stronger as a result of this process. The vast majority of the research published on this topic finds that couples who entwine their sense of selves report higher relationship quality on a variety of metrics, such as greater commitment and satisfaction. However, not all people approach and organize the relationship the same way. That is, they have different attachment styles. And because of this, it's plausible that the amount of self-change people experience differs depending on how anxiously attached they might be. And in turn, that might alter the benefits of self-change for the relationship. So in this current research, we explore the influence of attachment anxiety on perceived self-change processes. So attachment styles are a set of expectations and cognitions that partners have regarding relationship-specific emotions. For some people, they expect their relationship will not be a reliable source of need fulfillment, and as such, they develop a fierce sense of independence and distaste for relying on the relationship. These folks have high attachment avoidance. On the other hand, other people expect their partner will want to leave the relationship. As a result, they develop a strong need to feel close with their partner. These people have high attachment anxiety. Because attachment styles affect people's perceptions, they have a wide reach and transformative effect on relationships. People high in attachment anxiety experience a strong need to be close with a romantic partner. One way to increase this closeness is by integrating aspects about their partner into their self-concept or their cognitive view of themselves. For people high in attachment anxiety, they see their self-concept as especially malleable and are likely to integrate aspects about their partner in order to obtain the desired closeness that they crave. However, previous research has yet to assess whether people high in attachment anxiety are more likely to change their self-concept in a positive or negative manner. Generally, people with high attachment anxiety have a negative view of their self-concept. They tend to describe themselves using greater negative traits, lower abilities, and lower self-efficacy. This negative evaluation is problematic given people with low self-esteem have a tendency to incorporate negative attributes into their self-concept as a result of their partner. So when integrating aspects about their partner into their self-concept, we expect people high in attachment anxiety will likely continue to hold those negative views of themselves. Similarly, people high in attachment anxiety are more likely to describe their romantic partner by highlighting and emphasizing their negative characteristics. Ironically, seeing one's partner in a negative light is a threatening cue for people high in attachment anxiety, and as such, they ruminate and are really hypervigilant about these negative characteristics. Because of this, a partner's negative characteristics are especially salient to partners high in attachment anxiety. People high in attachment anxiety might use these salient negative characteristics as a way to validate their already negative self-concept. In doing so, they're able to validate their own self while simultaneously aligning their self-concept with aspects about their partner. Incorporating these negative characteristics allows people high in attachment anxiety to align themselves with their partner, which reduces that perceived distance. Taken together with self-change, the salience of negativity suggests that people high in attachment anxiety would be more likely to change their self in a negative light by incorporating greater negative characteristics from their partner. So the fusing together of partner self-concepts in romantic relationships is generally positive. When people perceive their self-concept to change as a result of incorporating positive characteristics from their partner, they report a variety of benefits. In general, they report better relationship quality, greater sexual desire, and being more committed and satisfied in the relationship. However, to date, a majority of the literature focuses on ways in which people change their self-concept for potential improvements. Unfortunately, that is not the only way in which people's selves can change. People can also incorporate greater negative aspects about their partner into their self-concept. And according to the two-dimensional model of relational self-change, people incorporate negative characteristics by means of self-adulteration. And extant work shows that self-adulteration, as opposed to self-concept improvement, are associated with a host of negative outcomes. So when people engage in greater self-adulteration, they report lower commitment, satisfaction, and higher dissolution consideration. So taken together, we predict that people who are high in attachment anxiety will report greater self-adulteration. So attachment anxiety will be positively associated with people incorporating negative content into their self-concept. Furthermore, we predict that a consequence of self-adulteration for individuals high in attachment anxiety is potentially worse relationship quality. So we expect that people high in attachment anxiety will perceive greater self-adulteration, which will contribute to lower commitment, satisfaction, and dissolution consideration. For the purpose of this talk, I'm going to focus just on commitment, but if you do have questions about satisfaction and dissolution consideration, I do have those results at the end. So to test these predictions, we conducted 3 studies. In the first study, we sampled from 549 people in romantic relationships, and they were in their relationship for at least 6 months. The majority of our sample was in their relationship for over 5 years. We had them complete a variety of self-report measures. So we used the 12-item measure of relational self-change to assess self-adulteration. We also had them report on their attachment styles, particularly with focus on attachment anxiety. So for hypothesis 1, we predicted that attachment anxiety would be related to greater self-adulteration. And we predicted this while controlling for attachment avoidance and the other 3 self-change processes within the two-dimensional model of relational self-change. So those would be self-expansion, which is adding positive attributes to your self-concept, self-pruning, which is removing negative attributes, and then self-contraction, which is removing positive attributes. So to test this prediction, we used a multiple regression with self-adulteration as that desired outcome, attachment anxiety as the predictor, and then those covariates. So according to this theory, these 4 self-change processes operate co-occurrently and simultaneously, which is why we opted to control for them. So we did find support that attachment anxiety was significantly and positively associated with self-adulteration. We also controlled for gender and relationship length in a separate set of regression analyses, and we find that the results still hold. Study 2, we sought to replicate this result. And so we surveyed 272 participants. Again, a majority were in the relationship for over 5 years. We asked them the same self-report measures about self-adulteration and attachment anxiety. And we also asked them an item about self-esteem, given people with low self-esteem are more likely to take on negative attributes from their partner. So we wanted to control for self-esteem in order to show that attachment anxiety uniquely predicts greater self-adulteration, despite someone's self-esteem. And again, we found that people high in attachment anxiety reported greater self-adulteration. And this remained supported when controlling for self-esteem. And then again, we controlled for gender and relationship length. In study 3, we wanted to see what effect this process might have on relationship quality. So we sampled from 122 participants. This study was done at 2 time points. So at time point 1 and 2, we asked about attachment styles and self-adulteration. And then we also asked about commitment. So what we found was participants who reported high attachment anxiety at time 1 reported greater self-adulteration at time 2. Again, this held when controlling for gender and relationship length. To test our second hypothesis, we predicted that greater attachment anxiety would predict greater self-adulteration and in turn predict lower commitment. So we know that oftentimes people high in attachment anxiety report high commitment, but we thought that perhaps self-change can describe why some folks do report low commitment. And so we found that greater attachment anxiety predicted greater self-adulteration, and then greater self-adulteration in turn predicted lower commitment. So these results have important implications for understanding the complexities of romantic relationships. Across 3 sets of studies, we found that people high in attachment anxiety engaged in greater self-adulteration. Additionally, extant work on this area focuses on ways in which people change their self-concept for the better and highlighting the potential benefits that has for the relationship. However, less research and empirical work focuses on understanding one's negative self-change processes. And so we hope to add to the literature to show not just all self-change is positive. Additionally, this can be potential areas of intervention work. So if we can get people to really focus on ways they've changed for the positive, perhaps that can preserve additional relationship quality. And then future work. So our results focused on cross-sectional and longitudinal data, but additional work would be needed to understand the causal implications, as well as self-esteem. So we only controlled for self-esteem. We didn't see if it moderated some of these relationships.
Thanks very much, Abby. Do we have any questions? Jannike's got a question.
Yeah, thank you, Abby. Again, something I don't know not much about, so it was very nice to hear your talk. I was wondering, you guided us through it in the beginning, that this is also related to negative attributes in the partner, and that when they align, that could increase closeness. But did you also take this into consideration in your studies that you presented?
Oh, that's a great question. Actually, we did measure closeness. We never looked at it in terms of an outcome variable, but that would be very interesting to do.
Okay.
My assumption would be people perceive greater closeness, perhaps, although there's some work to show that attachment, or rather self-adulteration, is related to lower closeness in a relationship. So perhaps in some cases, it might moderate the relationship a little bit more. But thank you for your thoughts, and I'll definitely check that out.
Yeah, I was wondering if there's some dyadic work on this, or if you're planning on doing it, because that would be super interesting, I think.
Yeah, I would, and I think all relationship researchers would love the dyadic option. And so we're hoping to collect a study dyadically next semester and potentially adding some of these as outcomes and research questions. So thanks so much for your question. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I've just got a question as well. In a couple of studies, you controlled for gender. I was just wondering what the rationale behind that was and whether it was possible it could be a moderator.
That's a great question. We originally were not planning on controlling for gender or relationship length, but one of our reviewers suggested we do so, and so we did. But we actually didn't look at the moderating effects for gender, but that is definitely something we can do. So I appreciate that question.
Great, thank you, Abby. All right, we'll move on to the next one. Miguel's not available today, so we're going on to Caitlyn.
Okay. I hope my screen works. Okay. Sorry, I tested this earlier, but of course it's not going to work smoothly right now. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Perfect. Okay, so hello everybody. My name is Kaitlyn Longo. I am a second-year graduate student at SUNY New Paltz, and I have been graciously invited to join on this study with Adam, with some help from Philip Kavanaugh and Glenn Gare, who's my advisor. So I just wanted to provide some background information to start. So in general, unrequited love is the state wherein the love one person experiences for another is not reciprocated. And this can happen in multiple forms, either love for a notable figure or a celebrity with whom an individual has no contact or very little, love for an individual where the person has regular contact or exposure, someone you are pursuing or courting, an individual that was formerly in a relationship with this individual and just does not reciprocate, or what we will be focusing on today, love for an individual who does not reciprocate that love despite being in a romantic relationship with that individual. So there are 5 types of unrequited love, as Bringle et al. Defined. There is a crush on someone who is unavailable, whether they are in a relationship with someone else or not. Crush on someone who is nearby but not initiating a romantic relationship, and this can also take multiple forms. Someone who is not aware or even is friends with that person and just doesn't have those same feelings. Pursuing the love object, where you are interested in this individual and they're just not interested in you, and they either reject once or multiple times. Longing for a past lover. This is typically somebody who did not want the relationship to end, but can also be somebody who regrets ending the relationship. And then unequal love relationships, which is what we're going to be talking about today. This can be differences in the intensity of love, in the nature of love experienced by the two individuals, or differences in the expectations about the pace of a relationship. So within romantic relationships, there are 2 types of love. Romantic love, which is also referred to as passionate love, is typically associated with the early stages of a romantic relationship, and is talked about in the sense of intense cognitions, emotions, and behaviors with high levels of passion and intimacy. Then there is companion love, which is less intense than romantic love and associated with established pair bonds, and is typically associated with high levels of commitment, though romantic/passionate love can also have high levels of commitment. Companion love is most commonly associated with a long-time relationship rather than a more newer relationship. And now on to the current study. So this study is looking to identify the characteristics associated with unequal love relationships. To our knowledge, no study has investigated factors associated with unrequited love among individuals in an unequal love relationship. So we kind of wanted to set a baseline and kind of explore to serve as like an initial observation to establish a basis for developing the hypotheses about these factors. So our study had 801 participants. I just wanted to make a note that the data that you will see in a couple of slides is including the outliers, because there was no significant difference when we took out the outliers. If you did want to see the data without the outliers, I do have that as well, but it was very, very small differences. So we used 7 different predictor variables: biological sex, relationship duration, which we measured in months. It was ranging from 0 to 23 months. Relationship satisfaction, and we measured this just by asking, in general, how satisfied are you with your relationship with your loved one? Frequency of sex per week, just asking how many times per week do you have sex with your partner, and that sex is however you choose to interpret it. The intensity of romantic love, which we did the passionate love scale 34, which I will talk about in the next slide. And this is the most widely used measure of romantic love in both biological and psychological studies of romantic love. Obsessive thinking, which we asked participants, what percentage of your waking hours do you spend thinking about the person you love? And they indicated responses on a slider ranging from 0 to 100%. And then commitment was measured using 5 items from the triangular love scale, using the commitment subscale from that. We did use the original 9-point scoring system rather than the proposed 5-point scoring system. So the passionate love scale is a 30-item scale. It is often shrunk into a 15-item scale, but we use the 30-item, and it is designed to measure an individual's level of passionate love towards another person. Each item is answered on a 9-point scale, ranging from 1 not true at all to 9 definitely true. And here are some sample statements. If blank were going through a rough time, I would put away my own concerns to help him or her out. I sometimes find it difficult to concentrate on work because thoughts of blank occupy my mind, and I take delight in studying the movements and angles of blank's body. There are blanks in all 30 statements, and participants are asked to place their loved one's name in that scale, in that blank. The triangular love scale is by Kowal et al. 2022. It is a short version of the commonly used TLS 45 developed by Sternberg in 1986. So this is just it measures the same intimacy, passion, and commitment on a 15-item scale instead of 45. And we use the commitment subscale. And these are the 5 items that were presented to participants. So at this point, we have run preliminary analyses. So there are some more analyses that will be run at some point. But to start, we have 0 order correlations. The unrequited love variable was computed so that 0 was no and 1 was yes. So when I'm kind of looking at these correlations, I like to think of positive correlations as more of an association with unrequited love, and negative correlations as association with requited love. For biological sex, responses for 1 for female and 2 for male. And there are a ton of significant correlations that show a lot of interesting relationships. And I think that, because this is an exploratory study, there's a ton that can be done with this. And as I kind of do some more data analyses, I'm excited to kind of look into these relationships a little bit more. Next, we did a binary logistic regression, which honestly was very interesting because I've never done a binary logistic regression. So it was a really good experience in trying to understand what all these mean. But the binary logistic regression found that holding all other variables constant, the odds of unrequited love occurring decreased by 6.23% for 1 month increase in relationship duration. And then unrequited love decreased by 67.81% for a 1 unit increase in relationship satisfaction, and that the odds of unrequited love occurring decreased by 12.51% for every 1 unit increase in relationship commitment. So this found that the only significant variables were relationship duration, relationship satisfaction, and relationship commitment. The sex, frequency of sex per week, intensity of the romantic love, and obsessive thinking did not have any significance in predicting unrequited love. So as previously mentioned, this study is the first of its kind, and we wanted to serve as an initial observation to establish a basis for developing hypotheses. And as you just saw, there were many significant correlations, but only relationship duration, satisfaction, and commitment were significantly predictive of experiencing requited love. And we didn't have many specific expectations or anything kind of going into the study, to my knowledge. Just because we wanted to kind of explore, but I think that this study can lead way to a ton of other studies. And just from the data that I was looking at, I kind of came up with a few different ideas, because this is a participant pool of young adults. I think it would be interesting to look at the relationship between these same factors and unrequited romantic love in other age groups to kind of compare. And also looking at the relationship between these same factors and unrequited love in young adults in different cultures and the variations between these different cultures. And I think that it would be interesting to kind of expand the research to go more specific groups in young adults, such as different attachment strategies, different personality traits, etc. So yeah. Thank you very much. And thank you, Adam, for giving me this opportunity.
Very good. Thanks, Caitlyn. Do we have any questions? It looks like Marta's got a question.
Yeah, thank you. Great presentation, Caitlyn. I was just wondering, what are your future directions? What else do you think would be worth studying and exploring regarding this topic? Thanks.
So honestly, right now, I don't think anything is set in stone on my end anyway. I initially was not the beginning idea of this project. That was actually Adam, and I kind of got connected through Glenn Gare. And so this is a little bit, honestly, this is not kind of what I normally study, and so I've really been enjoying kind of delving into a new section of research that I really haven't had any experience with. So I feel like there's so much that I want to study, but I'm still kind of going through a lot of research to see what has been done and what hasn't been done, just because I don't have enough knowledge to be like, oh, I have like 6 ideas and this one is probably like the only one that hasn't been done. But I think that definitely the cultural differences in these factors, because I just think like looking through like the responses on some of these things and looking at the significant predictors of unrequited love, it was just really interesting because I feel like, at least in the data that I've seen from my own culture on different kind of measures, would make me believe that results would be different. So I wonder if it is different culturally. So I'd really like to look at that.
Thanks.
Adam, you're muted.
You're muted.
Oh dear, thank you very much. So that concludes the first half of the symposium. We'll take a 10-minute break, and then Laura's going to tell us a bit about the Love Consortium. So we could all be back here at 15:15, and we'll get going again. All right, thanks very much. All right, everyone, very timely. Thank you. We'll start the second session of the symposium with Laura talking to us a bit about the Love Consortium.
Awesome. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, doke. Can you see everything?
Yes.
Great. Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to minimize that out of the way. Great. Well, hi, everyone. It's really great to see so many familiar faces. See a couple people that we've had at different events in the past, different funding opportunities. I'm Laura Kurtz. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a social psychologist and program manager of the Love Consortium. And Adam has graciously given me 5 minutes to talk about TLC today. And actually, I'm going to set a timer for myself because I don't want to be obnoxious and go over. So first things first, what is the Love Consortium? Founded in 2018 by Dr. Sarah Aljo and funded by the John Templeton Foundation, the Love Consortium is a digitally connected group of scholars dedicated to advancing the science of love and social connection through the use of archived data. And as I mentioned, Sarah Aljo is our founder, so we are based in North Carolina in the United States, but we do have researchers from all over the world engaged in what we're doing. In fact, and I know this isn't quite nearly as impressive as Marta's 90 some countries, but we've had people from 51 countries, and we're really proud of that, joining some of our events. We're excited to continue filling the map, turning the map teal. So if you have any colleagues in any of these countries that are not currently depicted on the map in teal, please do encourage them to get involved, to join us for an event, or I'll talk about some other ways to get involved in just a minute. So we advance our mission in a number of ways. Like I mentioned, we host events both in person and virtual events. They're always free to join. We provide grant funding opportunities, both research grants and travel grants, typically for graduate students or early career scholars. We actually have 2 open grant opportunities right now dedicated to advancing the science of gratitude specifically. So do check out our website if the topic of gratitude seems interesting to you. And then finally, we have a number of collaborative tools, including, and perhaps most central to our mission and probably most relevant to this group here today, the Love Consortium Dataverse. And that's what I'll talk a little bit more about right now. You can learn more about all of these things on our website down here at theloveconsortium.org. So the Dataverse, and I'm going to switch over. Tell me if the switch doesn't come through. This is the HTML if you want to follow along, dataverse.unc.edu/Dataverse Love. And this is what it looks like. So the Love Consortium Dataverse is at its core a collaboration tool. Sarah likes to refer to it as a matchmaking service for researchers, and I couldn't agree more. It's set up to be a collaboration tool first and foremost. So you'll see here on the left-hand side that we've included customized metadata and filters that allow you to search for data sets that might suit your needs. So anyone who has a data set containing a measure of love or social connection is invited to describe those data on the Dataverse, and then those who are seeking data to test maybe a new research hypothesis that they have, a new research question, or maybe replicate a finding that they've found in their own research, are invited to then search the Dataverse for data sets that might be good fits for them. And so I could filter by commonly used love assessments, population units, focal relationship types, different methods used. Really rich data here, often dyadic data too, just gonna throw that out there. So if you are itching to test a question with some dyadic data, there actually might be a data set or 2 already on here that could be worth your time investigating. You can also always just use a search box up here if you wanted to search for anything in particular or a name of somebody that may have posted a data set. So say, for instance, I am interested in parental love. I find here by clicking that filter that there are 5 data sets that contain a measure of parental love. I can then click into any particular data set description. I can read more about it. And you'll see when you explore the Dataverse that people use different degrees of detail when describing their data sets. Some folks, I'd say this is pretty average to maybe on the shorter side of a description, but then she provided a PDF including more details there. You can click down to metadata to learn more. including over here, the Love Consortium metadata, where we've customized fields to best suit the needs of those in our community. So I encourage you to just take a moment to browse the Dataverse if you've never done so. You'll see we also just included we've created another Dataverse within here. So the Global Gratitude Dataverse, if you are interested in gratitude research, I encourage you to go here. These are all the data sets we have that include a measure of gratitude, and that's one of the prerequisites for applying for those grant funding opportunities I mentioned earlier. But super easy to search for, super easy to post a description to the Dataverse. Check out our website for more information about how to do that. And there are other ways to get involved as well. So I know many of you have followed us on social media or signed up for a listserv. I've seen quite a few of you at our events in the past. So please do consider doing that if you haven't already. And again, searching the Dataverse for any relevant data, considering sharing your own data set descriptions to the Dataverse, applying for one of those grants, or even helping us to create some content. So we put out a newsletter that we do send to our listserv every quarter-ish. And so if you would like to contribute some content for that newsletter, feel free to reach out. We have a whole process for doing that. And if you have any other questions, feel free to email us at the email address down below. And I am over time, so I will stop there.
Thank you, Laura. It's a really valuable resource, and some of the symposiums, and I know there's a conference that's coming up next year, so keep an eye out for things from the Love Consortium for sure.
Yeah, we'll be opening a call for speakers for the conference, the Love Conference, in the next month. So stay tuned for that. Sign up for our listserv and you'll get an email about it. Yeah.
Sounds great. All right, let's move on to the first presentation of this session, Janneke.
Yes, right. Do you see my slides?
Yes.
Perfect. Wait, it popped to another. Do you see the full screen or the PowerPoint?
The full screen. No, sorry, the PowerPoint. I can see the slides on the side as well.
Okay, wait, I'm gonna just disconnect from my other screen. Now, the full screen?
That's
perfect.
Good.
All right. Okay. So hi, my name is Janneke. I'm a PhD researcher at Ghent University, and I would like to talk with you about electronic partner surveillance and my work on this topic. So the first question that we have to ask is, what is electronic partner surveillance? So electronic partner surveillance describes the use of digital technology, and any kind of technology you can think of can probably be used in some way for this practice, to control and monitor our romantic partners' online and offline activities. So for example, checking their GPS, looking into their browser history, checking their social media, who are they interacting with, who are they messaging, stuff like this. And when we think about electronic partner surveillance, and maybe you also realize this within yourself right now, we often look at this as a malicious practice, and we generally assume that it is driven by negative emotions and negative traits. And if you were thinking this, you wouldn't be totally wrong. Actually, there's a lot of research out there already that has been able to link partner surveillance practices to these negative emotions and traits, such as feelings of jealousy, hostility, insecurity. Also has been linked to the dark triad personality traits, if you're familiar with those. So you wouldn't be wrong if this is the box that you put this practice in. But I don't think that this paints the full picture. And there are a couple of reasons why I raised questions about this. So what we see in a lot of research on partner surveillance is that it's actually fairly common. So in a systematic review that was conducted in 2019, they actually found prevalence rates from almost 50% of people to almost 90% of people engaging in this type of behavior. So using technology to check on their partner. And in my own work, we did a study where we asked people about their partner surveillance practices for only like we asked them, did you do it in only the past 2 weeks? And we already found that more than 1/3 of the respondents in our survey, in fact, had checked on their partner. So when it is that common, you could wonder if it is also that harmful and that malicious, because in a lot of these studies, the people that were filling out the survey at that moment were still together with their partner. And also generally the relationship satisfaction within this sample was actually rather high. So this raises questions about how we should approach partner surveillance, and if we cannot come up with ways, and I'm sure you already right now can, where it's actually not that malicious, not that harmful, probably not that ill-intended. So this brings me to the question that I want to discuss with you guys today. And that is, do practices of partner surveillance also relate to feelings and expressions of love? And if so, how? So what I will do is I will discuss with you my research on this topic. And I've done several studies, and I will not be like, oh, study 1 was this, study 2 was this, because I do not have the time to give all the sample descriptions, so I can talk with you about it more afterwards or via email. But I'm going to sort of summarize my findings on this from multiple studies. And I do want to point out that most studies were survey studies among Flemish adults, so Dutch-speaking Belgians who were in romantic relationships at the time. And also I am currently conducting an interview study, and I've already interviewed 11 people who have in fact used technology to control and monitor their partner. And I've asked them about their reasons why and their experiences there. So before I go into this question of, oh, can we relate it to feelings and expressions of love? It is important to note that also in my research, I do find that for many, it is driven by these negative factors that we discussed before, like jealousy, distrust, insecurity. It has all been addressed in the interviews that I've conducted, in the surveys that I did. It's also linked to sort of more negative experiences. So we definitely shouldn't forget about that. But at the same time, I want to present some findings that maybe present a more comprehensive picture on this practice. So a first finding that I want to address is that we found that partner surveillance can also be seen and approached as an expression of care. We did a survey study among 715 Flemish adults, and we asked them if they had ever engaged in partner surveillance. And when they indicated that they had, we asked them what their main reasons for this practice are. And again, amongst the reasons were also reasons such as insecurity and distrust, but reasons related to protection and to care were also 2 of the most frequently mentioned reasons among these engagers in partner surveillance. So they indicated that they wanted to protect the partner, maybe from people who wanted to maybe do them harm, or they wanted to make sure that their partner has arrived safely somewhere, or they wanted to take care of the entire household, or for practical reasons wanted to know if their partner was getting home soon, stuff like that. And these expressions of care through partner surveillance were also found in our interviews. So one of our interviewees, for example, said that she checked her partner's location when she would be in the car, just so that she would know that her partner was safe. And another participant was more on the fence of whether or not he thought that it was healthy and fully driven by care alone. He was also a bit insecure as well, as he indicated, but he also said, I mainly look at it because I want to make sure that she got home safely, or that she arrived at the place that she said she was going to safely. So through these experiences, through these findings, I think we can approach partner surveillance also as an expression of care. In addition to that, we also found some data, or we had some conversations where partner surveillance could be perceived as an expression of commitment to the partner, commitment to the relationship. And a sort of reverse engineered argument for this is that we didn't find any significant differences in our currently ongoing survey study between people who had used partner surveillance and people who didn't, in relation to their commitment to the relationship, their investment in the relationship, their satisfaction with the relationship, and also the extent to which they were responsive to their partner, or their partner was responsive to them. So that in itself already raises some important questions about how malicious this practice then is supposed to be. And in addition to that, we also had an interview with one interviewee who said that she used partner surveillance basically so she monitored her partner's social media or sometimes checked his messages, according to her, mostly because she wanted to know what is going on in his world. She did it out of interest, what concerns him, who are his friends, like who is he close with, what are his activities, and to get to know him better. A third finding that I wanted to present to you guys today is that in one case, and it's just one case, so it's probably fairly uncommon, but I think it is worth noting. One interviewee indicated that partner surveillance could be a strategy to actually protect the relationship. She indicated that she has a very, very big problem with trusting people. She herself, this is her quote, she has very heavy trust issues. And she actually said that she uses partner surveillance as a sort of tool, as a tool to make these trust issues a sort of opponent for her partner and her together against those trust issues. So it's not her versus her partner and these trust issues that fuel this fight, but it's her and her partner fighting these trust issues in her, and then the surveillance itself could be a tool that she can reduce the trust issues because she is able to see that her trust issues might not be always how do you say this? It's the data doesn't suggest that it's appropriate to distrust her. I don't know, the English is failing me, but you know what I mean, I think. A fourth finding that I wanted to share with you is that we see over and over again in our own research, in other people's research, that partner surveillance is a practice that is very normalized, or is becoming very normalized, especially among younger people, younger adults, younger generations. We see this, for example, in our survey research, where we found that among almost 780 adults, quite some people engaged in partner surveillance or had experienced it as a victim. I call them perpetrators and victims here because engagers is a fine term, but then victims are not non-engagers, so I didn't know the right terms for it, but perpetrators might be a bit too heavy loaded. But anyway, out of all the perpetrators, only 6% would say, oh yeah, I think the behavior that I'm exhibiting is serious or even very serious. And of course, here you could say, yeah, of course, they wouldn't say that their own behaviors are serious or very serious because they do it. But then when we asked people who experienced it from their partner, the same thing, also only 8% of these people said that they think the behavior is serious or very serious. So this in itself, I think, signals a sort of normalization of the behavior, and also signals that it's not perceived as that harmful as that we sometimes assume it to be. And we also see this in our interviews, where one interviewee indicated, oh, it's so accessible, and I know so many other people who do it, that it makes them and myself think that it's okay to check on things like that. And this other woman said, like, well, if so many other people are doing it, is it then even shameful? Should we feel bad about it? So these are 4 examples that I wanted to present with you, or 4 findings, maybe even, that I think paint a bit of a different picture on partner surveillance that we had thus far always adhered to in our research. And so what can we do with this? What should we do with this? I think the first thing that we should do as scholars is really reconsider and maybe also reconceptualize partner surveillance in such a way that we do not underestimate that it can be harmful. We still highlight this as well, but at the same time, we should approach it in such a way that our respondents in our sample, that the people we talk to also feel that they have the room to share experiences that are not harmful, that there might be even benefit, that it might actually benefit the relationship and them. So we should very much be more inclusive of those kind of experiences as well in how we approach partner surveillance. And I mean, what follows this conceptualization is also the operationalization of it. I think we can tackle a lot of this also by including not only the behavioral measure itself, have you done it or has your partner done it, but also the intention when you ask it to the engager, and the perceptions on the behavior when you ask it to both the engager and then the victim, the non-engager. I don't know the right term here. If you have ideas, share them. And then another thing that I think is important is that we use a bit of a bigger lens at this point. We do know a bit about the behavior already. We do know something about what predicts it, what the outcomes can be. And now I think it's important that we look into like this normalization process itself. Like, how has it come about? Why is it normal? Is it a problem that it's normal? Should we do something with this? And then from that, we can build maybe some prevention and intervention efforts that could help romantic couples. Here, it's also important that we look beyond certain age groups, and also that we consider cultural differences in these practices and reasons for these practices. From the perspective of practice, I think it would help if we aid couples, we empower them in. So technology is here to stay. I don't think it's an argument anymore like, oh, you should put your phone away. It doesn't help. We know this because we use it all the time. So if it's going to be here to stay, then how can we help couples deal with this and still, despite the constant presence of technology, still able to foster and maintain healthy relationships. And then I think a sort of advice that I would give is, okay, we have now seen that these more covert strategies like partner surveillance is rather covert. It happens by yourself on your phone or laptop. These covert strategies can maybe also expressions of love, but I think from what we see from research, from what I see in my own life, from what I see when I talk with people, is that overt strategies to express love and care and commitment are still the best way to go. When we do it by ourselves in our phone, we can also make assumptions that might not even be true and create conflicts that aren't even there. Before I leave you with that, I just wanted to share 3 quotes that show that technology has actually so much opportunity for all of us. And since it is here to stay, I think this is the way that we can go forward. Like, people wouldn't have met without technology. People wouldn't have been able to do long distance without technology. And there's also so many opportunities still to train younger generations, but also older generations on how to deal with technology in a healthy way. And I'm very excited to see the research fields also move towards that. I will leave it at that. I very much look forward to hear your thoughts, and please feel free to get in touch with me about my work.
Thank you very much, Janneke. Looks like we've got a couple of questions. Can we start with Abby?
For this talk, it was really interesting, and I enjoyed hearing how technology can really play a role in relationships. I was curious if you at all had research or data looking at people's motivation. So I know you gave the quote of, I look at my partner's location because I want their safety. That feels different than perhaps I'm looking at their TikTok to see who they're following or commenting on. And so I wonder if perhaps motivation matters.
Yes, you're very right that these are very different practices. The tool itself differs also strongly between sort of the engagers. And then also the information that you can collect with these tools, of course, differs. So I'm sure that the reason behind it also differs. We did find that very extensively checking who they are following and who they're interacting with in interviews. Some of them would say that, yeah, it's also a way that I want to be connected with their social world. But those were often expressed by people who also indicated that they were very insecure. So it's true that these are different practices for different reasons. I think what also comes to play a lot with this is whether it's consensual or not. I think with half of the interviews, the other partner knew about it. And with some, they even had a conversation about it, like, hey, I want to do this. Are you okay? You can also do it with me. Then it's maybe itself immediately not a problem anymore in the relationship because you actually use it together. But then still there were also some insecurities there, and like still they said if technology would be gone by tomorrow, my life would probably be better. So it's like there's so much ambiguity there of whether they what the reasons are, what they think the reasons are, what we as a third party, when we hear them speak, what we distract from it, because it's also very different. So yeah, it's also entangled, I think. It's a good question. We should definitely do more with it, but there is some data, but yeah, it's a complicated picture, I think.
Thank you so much. I greatly appreciate it.
And Fabio?
Yeah, hi, Janneke. Thank you very much. It was very interesting. And from my perspective, because I'm also a clinical psychologist, I really see this kind of behaviors on my patients, and I can confirm to you that usually some of these behaviors are correlating with some personality disorders. Sometimes, usually. And but my question to you, I have two questions. So, did you check if there was some stage of relationship where these kind of behaviors are, higher or lower? Because I'm thinking maybe more at the beginning, early stage, or if they last for all times. What do you think about that?
So in a big survey study, I did find that younger generations did it more than older. So, and then relationship duration, of course, was also a factor in that. The more you are together, maybe you feel less insecure, less the need to check on your partner. But in the interviews, I think they are more illuminating. It is indeed true. I would ask them in the interview more towards the end, like, hey, do you feel as if the behavior is increasing, staying the same, or decreasing at this point? And most of them would say decreasing, because I get to know my partner more. So every time I check on him or her, I am confirmed by this, that I can actually trust them, because so far nothing has popped up that I am worrying about. So the desire to check decreases, except when they are individuals who are so anxious, so insecure, so in need for control that their partner can validate them all they want, but they will never let go of this urge to check on them. Those are the only groups, but that's would say, oh, it's increasing or staying the same. But you are right that most people said, I did it mostly at the beginning of the relationship, and as soon as I got more of a sense of who they are interacting with, who their friends are, what their interests are, I didn't feel the need as strongly anymore.
Okay, thank you for the answer. I want to ask you, did you check if there is a type of electronic partner surveillance that is most commonly used? I mean, between all the one you tested, there is something that is most used compared to the others?
Yeah. So
I mean, GPS is still using GPS to check people, or they more checking the likes on TikTok?
Yeah, I understand the question. I think so. The monitoring of social media is most common, but it's not always that they do it also for this practice, right? You just check your partner's social media, even if you're not also curious or insecure or whatever. So that in survey research, that's the most common mentioned.
Okay.
But when you do the interviews, you realize that that's just because they use social media, not so much for the surveillance. In the interviews, I was actually quite surprised that out of the 11 interviews, I think for 9 or something, it was GPS. Actually, they use a lot of them use Snapchat, and they use the map that you have where you can see your friends, and they also check it for their partner. And yeah, I was surprised by that it was GPS, because and then I asked them, like, why do you think that is, or how did you come up with this behavior? And it's interesting, a lot of them would also say, yeah, my parents also check my location. So I think it's quite normal to constantly know where someone is. And so, yeah, that's why I do it with my partner. So there's such an interesting generational shift going on here, where we have these younger parents who use these surveillance practices for the safety of their kid, but then you normalize it and use it yourself. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Janneke.
You're welcome.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Janneke. We might move on
Sure.
just to keep in time. And I think I'm up next. I will share screen. All right, hopefully you can all see that.
Yes.
Great. All right, so g'day everyone. My name's Adam Bode, and I'm here to talk to you about a paper I'm currently working on with Marta Kowal and Phil Kavanagh. called Time in Love but Not Relationship Duration Predicts Commitment in Young Adults Experiencing Romantic Love. So I'm just going to introduce two theories that are relevant to the paper. So the first is that love serves as a commitment device. So this theory, first proposed by Robert Frank in 1988, posited that love in romantic relationships serves to promote commitment. And this is important because commitment generally is associated with pair bonding, and that's not modal among mammals. Generally, mammals are promiscuous and don't form long-term relationships. So there needs to be some sort of mechanism that makes us behave differently, and love was postulated to be that. The theory is promoted by a number of important figures, including David Buss, but to my knowledge, there's actually been no published studies that have investigated this theory. Although I will note, last year's Symposium, Ben Gelbart presented a presentation that looked at a few theories, and he found that there was little evidence that love served as a commitment device in his samples. The other theory I want to introduce, which Marta spoke about, is the triangular theory of love, first postulated by Sternberg in 1986. And it basically says that love is constituted by three components: intimacy, passion, and commitment. His conceptualization of romantic love is that it involves intimacy and passion, but not commitment, although he does identify one type of love he calls consummate love, which is characterized by commitment, intimacy, and passion. And the theory says that commitment increases with relationship duration, although surprisingly, after all this time, there's been very few studies that have investigated this, with two notable exceptions by Freeman and colleagues and Garcia. So I want to talk to you about two concepts that pop up in the romantic love literature, and that is relationship duration and time in love. So relationship duration and time in love are similar but different, and it's unknown which is more relevant to romantic love related outcomes. It's quite feasible that some factors associated with romantic love be more influenced by relationship duration and others by time in love. So in this study, we suppose that if time in love is more important, then romantic love acts like a commitment device. But if relationship duration is more important, the triangular theory of love is probably correct. So we have a reasonably large data set to investigate this with from the Romantic Love Survey 2022, which is posted on the Love Consortium dataverse. Thanks very much for that. That gives us a citation and a DOI, so that's really useful. The participants were recruited on Prolific. They were from pretty weird countries, all young adults aged 18 to 25. And all were partnered, so either dating in a committed relationship or married or de facto. They all self-identified as being in love, and they all scored. We only used participants that scored above 130 on the passionate love scale, and we only use participants that have been in love for 23 months or less, because 2 years is a common length of time that is cited for early stage romantic love as opposed to long-term romantic love, which has some differences. And ultimately, the sample we used was 810 participants. And I'll just, the map up there, that's where the participants are from. South Africa was oversampled, so was Poland. And as you can see, it's mainly Europe and North America. So the methods and the measures we use. So the outcome variable we were looking at was commitment, which is from the TLS 15 that Marta introduced. I'm sorry, that's the old preprint citation. It's recently been published, so I'll need to update if I present on this again. And as has been mentioned by Caitlyn, we used a 9-point response format rather than the suggested 5-point response format. That was just an error when I created the survey, unfortunately. It was very disappointing that I made that error and then maintained the traditional scoring system. The predictor variables that we used were relationship duration in months and months in love. And we controlled for a number of factors: a number of times in love, intensity of romantic love measured with the passionate love scale, the 30-item version, day sense, and relationship satisfaction, which was just scored on a 1 to 5, low satisfaction to high satisfaction. So we did a hierarchical linear regression, and in step 1, we included the controls. In step 2, we included the controls plus relationship duration in months. And in step 3, we included the controls, relationship duration in months, and months in love. So get to the results. Step one, which was the controls, and that explained 56.5% of the variance in commitment. And that was a significant finding. In step two, where we added relationship duration in months, it explained an additional 0.5% of the variance in commitment, and that was also significant. And in step three, when we added months in love, that explained an additional 0.3% of the variance in commitment. And what I want to emphasize here is that when we added months in love to the model, it actually turned relationship duration into a non-significant finding, and months in love remained significant. So that's the main finding of the study. But I just want to point out a couple of other things we got from the data. So this shows scores on the TLS-15 commitment subscale by months in love. And as you can see, there is a somewhat shallow but linear increase in commitment, starting from 0 months going up to 23 months. It's pretty linear. But the point I want to make here is that even at 0 months, these people who are in love are experiencing relatively high commitment, 6 out of a possible 9, when the height is only 8 out of a possible 9. Another thing I want to show you from the data is this variable we constructed called love progression, which is basically relationship duration minus time in love. So that is the percent of participants according to love progression. A score of 0 indicates individuals fell in love at the same time as they started their romantic relationship. Negative values indicate that they fell in love before they started their romantic relationship, and positive values indicate that they fell in love after they started their romantic relationship. So as you can see, about 20% of participants fell in love at the same time as they started their relationship. About 25% fell in love before they started their romantic relationship, and about 45% fell in love after they started their romantic relationship. So what are the main findings of the study? The main finding is that months in love predicted commitment, and this supports the theory that love is a commitment device. And relationship duration did not predict commitment in the final model. And so this suggests some degree of caution when applying the triangular theory of love to people experiencing romantic love. It's also important to note that commitment seems relatively high from the commencement of romantic love. And as a result, I think we can confidently say Sternberg's conceptualization of romantic love not having high commitment may be wrong. We need further studies, but the indications are that his conceptualization of romantic love not involving commitment might not be spot on. So there were a number of limitations. The first is that the sample was very weird. They were all from OECD countries in South Africa. They were mainly students and they all spoke English. Also a limitation was that the commitment subscale we used the 9-point response format instead of 5 points. And we only used a small number of covariates to control for, and future studies should identify more. So the takeaway message I want to give you is that time in love and relationship duration are different, and they should be treated as such. So when you do your research, it's really useful to have a rationale for which variable you use. Thank you. Any questions? Doesn't look like we've got any questions. So why don't we move on to the next presentation, which is Caitlyn.
Perfect. Let me go ahead and share my screen.
I'm sorry, Adam. I had to unmute myself. I do have a question.
Yes.
Did you collect any open-ended responses from these participants? And if so, have you read them, and what are your thoughts?
No, I didn't. We were limited in resources, and I wanted to make this as simple as possible. So the only open-ended question was about their self-identified gender, where people could respond with whatever they wanted. But other than that, everything was tick a box or pick an option.
Great, thank you.
All right, Caitlyn.
Perfect. Okay, you able to see my screen?
Yeah, that looks good.
Okay, perfect. So I am Kaitlyn Harriman. I am a master's student at the University of Missouri in St. Louis, and I am going to be presenting on a study that I have been working for my thesis. So what is the problem? The problem is that people who are in love seem addicted to their beloved. If you've ever been in love before, you might have noticed that you got a little crazy. You might have been a little obsessed with this person, thinking about them all the time, caring more about their opinion than whether the sun rose the next morning. And if you haven't been in love yet, you might have noticed that friends also present this. So if you had a really good friendship and they were in a new relationship, they might have started spending more time with their partner. They might have been ignoring their other responsibilities. And this is super common in early stages of romantic love. However, this belief is becoming so prevalent that many people, including medical and mental health professionals, are actually starting to believe that addiction to the beloved and substances are similar. And they have been compared many times in literature reviews, but they have not been directly compared in an empirical study, which is what we are going to talk about today. So moving into some of the similarities and differences, the honeymoon phase is characterized by addiction-like reactions. So again, this includes obsessive fixation on the beloved and similar physiological reactions. So this can include an increased heart rate, increased skin conductance, and maybe butterflies in the stomach. And then a breakup can provoke addiction-like withdrawal reactions. So whether the relationship has ended or if one partner has to go out of town on business for a few weeks, we can see changes in mood, we can see changes in sleep habits. And then of course, this also happens whenever individuals are withdrawing from a substance. And then we also see some similarities in subjective experiences. So of course, individuals crave their beloved whenever they are newly in love, but one of the unique differences between romantic love and substance use is that in romantic love, this craving actually decreases as the relationship increases. So when I first met my husband, of course, I had all of those newly in love feelings, but now that we've been married for 4 years, I don't really crave his presence as much as I did the day after we went on our first date. And then similarly, individuals crave an addictive substance. However, their craving increases as their usage increases, even though the liking decreases. So the longer that someone is using some addictive substance, the more that they are craving it, even though they might actually be liking it less than whenever they first used it. And then in addition, individuals who are in love rate pictures of their beloved as highly pleasant and arousing. We also see similarities between romantic love and substance use and attentional biases. So people who are in love detect their beloved more often than a friend or a stranger in an attentional blink task. And then individuals with opioid and nicotine dependence have attentional biases as well as faster reaction times for drug-related stimuli. So we used electroencephalography, event-related potentials, and those are big words. So event-related potentials are the average of brain waves in response to a stimuli. So we just showed people pictures and then took the average of all of their averages. So the first component that we looked at is late positive potentials, and this has been used a lot in romantic love and addiction research. And the late positive potential is a positive component over the parietal scalp that occurs about 300 milliseconds after stimulus onset. So if you look at this graph on the right, this is just what it looks like on the scalp. So for the beloved, it's very, very dark. It's very strong, especially compared to the friend and even more so compared to a stranger. And then on the right, this is just what it looks like for the actual EEG wave at the electrode PZ, which is on the back of your scalp in the middle. And one of the weird things about EEG is that whenever we look down, that's actually positive on the graph. So we can see at around 400 milliseconds, we start to see this significant positive in response to the beloved compared to a friend or a stranger. And the late positive potential is important in my research because it reflects sustained motivated attention for emotional stimuli. And then it is elicited using a standard passive viewing task, which I'm going to talk more about in a few minutes. And independent research has shown that the late positive potential is stronger for the beloved and addictive stimuli, respectively. So we are hoping to compare the two. And then in addition, we are also going to be looking at the event-related potential component, the early posterior negativity. And this is a relative negativity that occurs over the occipital scalp at around 150 to 300 milliseconds after stimulus onset. So again, this is just what it looks like on the scalp topography. So we can see at the left occipital scalp, it's a lot darker. And this was in comparison to a friend and a stranger, but unfortunately I couldn't fit it all. And then on this graph, this is just what it looks like for the EEG wave at P7, which is an electrode over the parietal scalp on the left side. And again, negative is up, which is a little weird to wrap your brain around for the first time. But we see at around 225 milliseconds, it starts to get a lot more negative and for the beloved compared to a friend or a stranger. And the EPN is important because it represents early automatic attention for evolutionarily relevant stimuli. And it is elicited using a rapid serial visual presentation, which I will again explain in a few minutes. And then this is important because research has also independently shown that the EPN is stronger compared to beloved stimuli and addictive stimuli, respectively. So moving on to my primary research questions and hypotheses, we chose to use vaping in my study because it is very common in St. Louis and it's also legal. So we did not want to get into the gray area of using an illegal substance. And my first research question is there a difference in an individual's self-reported craving, valence, and arousal for their beloved compared to a vape? My second research question is there a difference in sustained attention reflected by that late positive potential for the beloved compared to a vape? And then my third research question is there a difference in automatic attention reflected by that early posterior negativity for the beloved compared to a vape? So far we have had 8 participants with an average age of 35. We have had 5 men and 3 women. They have all been in heterosexual relationships. They were required to vape any substance once a day, but so far all 8 of our participants have vaped nicotine substances. And then they were required to be in love with someone who did not vape. This was part of our criteria because we did not want the beloved to act as a vape cue whenever they were completing the tasks. And then I wanted to note that data collection is ongoing, so we do not only have 8. This is just where I'm at so far in data collection. And moving into the methods, we had participants fill out 2 modified versions of the questionnaire on smoking urges, and the original version assesses craving for cigarette use. So we modified it to fit a vape and then a beloved. So on the vape version, one of the examples is, if it were possible, I would probably vape right now. And then on the beloved version, it says, if it were possible, I would probably be with my beloved right now. And then moving on to the methods, we are using a 32 electrode EEG, and then there are 30 pictures each of the beloved, a vaping stranger, and a neutral stranger. And I just wanted to shout out my husband real quick for letting me use his picture. And to elicit the late positive potential, we are using that standard passive viewing task. So in this task, pictures are presented one time for 1,000 milliseconds to result in 30 trials each of the beloved, 30 trials of the vaping stranger, and then 30 trials of the neutral stranger. And then to elicit the early posterior negativity, we are using that rapid serial visual presentation. So in this task, each picture is presented randomly 10 times at a rate of 3 per second, resulting in 300 trials per condition. So this task is obviously a lot faster than the standard passive viewing task. And this is so that we can elicit that early posterior negativity to get that relative difference. And then finally, participants, oh no. Okay, there we go. Participants rated the valence and arousal of each picture that they saw using a 9-point self-assessment mannequin. So moving into preliminary affect results, so far we have found that craving is strongest for the beloved compared to a vape. We have also found that, oh no, okay, sorry guys, it's not clicking whenever I hit the arrow sometimes. We have found that valence is strongest for the beloved and equal for the vaping stranger and the neutral stranger. And then we have found that arousal is strongest for the beloved, intermediate for the vaping stranger, and then lowest for the neutral stranger. And then moving on to my attention results, on the left, this is the late positive potential, so that's sustained motivated attention. And we have found so far that the LPP is largest for the beloved. So at around 400 milliseconds, you can see that it starts to get a lot more positive, which is down in EEG research. for the beloved compared to a vaping stranger or a neutral stranger. And then moving on to the early posterior negativity, and this is that automatic attention. We see that it appears for the beloved compared to that vaping stranger. And then it looks like there might be a significant one between the vaping stranger and the neutral stranger, but we won't know until I finish data collection and we're able to run everything. So in conclusion, moving back to my primary research questions, is there a difference in an individual's self-reported craving, valence, and arousal for their beloved compared to a vape? Yes. So far, self-reported craving, valence, and arousal are higher for the beloved compared to vape stimuli. And then second, is there a difference in sustained attention reflected by that late positive potential for the beloved compared to a vape? And again, yes, there is stronger sustained attention for the beloved compared to vape stimuli. And then finally, is there a difference in automatic attention for the beloved compared to a vape? Yes, there is stronger automatic attention reflected by that early posterior negativity for the beloved than vape stimuli. I just wanted to thank you for having me here today. Thank you, Adam, for hosting this. And I also wanted to thank my advisor, Sandra Langeslaw, for all of her guidance and mentorship. This is my email if anyone has any questions about what I went over today or is just a little bit more curious about EEG research. And then I am happy to answer any questions.
Excellent. Thank you, Caitlyn.
Thank you.
Do we have any questions?
So I have a question. Can you guys hear me? Okay, yeah. So I was wondering, do you think that these results might translate to other addictive substances since your population's only nicotine right now?
That's a really great question. I don't think that they would be as strong for the beloved compared to other addictive substances as they are right now. And that's just because vaping is very new. I think that if we looked at substances that have been used for decades or centuries, we might see a little bit more of that attention for the substance. But I think that would be a great follow-up study. Thank you.
Fabio.
Thank you very much, Kaitlyn. It was really, really interesting. I've done one of my previous study in EEG. So my question is more about the herbs you decide to investigate it. Did you investigate it even other herbs in terms of sensory perception or negativity in frontal part of more frontal electrodes, or just you focalize your study in the one you showed today?
That's a great question. So we actually haven't looked at any electrodes in the frontal region, but that is something that we could absolutely look at, especially since data collection is still ongoing. So I think that would be a really interesting electrode to assess. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Marta.
Oh, I just saw your question in the chat. I do not have the mean off of the top of my head, but from memory, everyone has vaped at least 20 times a day. So we had it on a scale of at least once a day, and then 2 to 10 times, 10 to 20 times, 21 to 30, 31 to 40, and then anything over 41. And I can't remember anyone being under 20, but I can look at my data and get back to you on that so that you know for sure.
Great, thank you very much, Caitlyn. All right,
Thank you.
On to the next presentation, Mengya.
Okay, give me a second to share my screen. Okay, is the presentation full screen show up there?
Yes, we can. Yep.
Okay, let me try. Okay, is it moving?
Yes, it is.
Okay, awesome. Hey everyone, thank you so much for the opportunity to give this presentation. So I'm Mengya Xia, I'm an assistant professor at Arizona State University. So today I want to talk about the development and evaluation of perceived love scale. So a little quick background introduction. As we all know, love is a pretty fuzzy and multifaceted construct. It's hard to give a definition of it. So a lot of people have different way to approach this construct, mainly divided into two big branches. First branch is of scholars who like to measure distinct types of love, such as like different love styles, what are the basic types of love, or love in different relationships. And another group of scholars like to treat love as a general feeling, but still theoretically approach it from different perspective, like, attachment, think that as a long-term accumulation result, or positivity resonant theory, think that as a momentary emotion. So it's kind of like being a lot of things going on there. So I personally like to perceive love as a nutrient in interpersonal interactions. So basically, I'm thinking love, it's just a general thing that you would like to experience in any interpersonal interaction, and that will help to build up like positive developments and well-being for anyone. That's why I conceptualize love from the general feeling approach and collect data from the recipient's perspective. Because what really matters is what a person feel about it, how they perceive a thing, right? So that's kind of like the basic where this come from. So based on that, I look into literature and found there is not a single definition of what makes people feel loved. So I decided to collect the qualitative data myself by looking at lay people's perspective of what makes them feel loved in different relationships. So in this published study, I look at love in family, romantic, and friend relationships. And luckily, I found shared three components of perceived love across all three types of relationships. So the first component is positive responsiveness to need, which basically is no matter what they do, what they say, if that's a thing, make people feel they are liked, valued, or supported, that's counted as like positive responsiveness. The second component is authentic connection. Basically, that's kind of like the mutual thing. Both parties feel like they want to be together, they have fun together, and they feel like they're in tune with each other. And the third dimension is a little bit on a different angle, right? Because it has a time scale, like over. It's a sense of stability. Primarily, it's about the thing is not changing. All those positive elements are not changing across conditions or across time. So it's like unconditional and reliable. So based on this framework, as I mentioned, it's really qualitative data from lay people. The next step, what I want to do is I want to see if there is a way to measure those components quantitatively. That's the motivation for having this study, develop the scale based on this framework. So the present study have two aims. First, I want to develop the perceived love scale based on the framework I just briefly introduced, and then to validate PLS in different samples and evaluate its psychometric properties. So as you see, the three colors, kind of like a tree briefly before, that's kind of like the original source of how we come up with the initial ideas. So basically we have the big pool of qualitative data of people's like description of what are the things make them feel loved. In the meanwhile, we also looked into some existing measures that have some item, have similar description on the things we want to capture. So essentially, what we combine these two resources and come up with 3 items per each of the subcomponents here. So overall, we come up with 21 items as the initial item pool. So first step, we use a convenient sample of 340 college students. As you see, the sample is pretty convenient, not really like representative that much, but a good first step. So what we do is we ask them the 21 questions in the initial pool and conduct exploratory factor analysis and to see what factors we can find and finalize the item and then conduct a CFA. So in the EFA, I use criteria of eigenvalue larger than 1, and it turned out to result in 3 factors here. As you can see, the 3-factor structure is pretty clear, with only a few items have slightly cross-loading, but most of them looks pretty good. So next, I decided to keep the items with the highest loading because we want to make sure it's a brief enough measure, but also be able to have good structure. So I kept the 5 items with the highest level and only remove the 1 item at the bottom because that one have a little bit cross loading, resulting in 14 items in the final pool. So I did another round of analysis using the same data, conduct both EFA and CFA using eigenvalue larger than 1, which is the EFA portion, or force the factor analysis to have 3 factors. So it's the CFA. Both of them result in the same table as you see here. It's clear structure, very good factor loading of all items, right? So, which is pretty exciting, as I will show you, on the next slide. Next step is to look at what the factors are, right? What we really hope is the data will be able to tell the story of what we hypothesized, the 3 components. And luckily it did. So the first 5 items, as you can see, is really about the connection, having fun together, accompanying, know each other. So this is the authentic connection component. The second one have those cherish, make me feel important, special, affectionate, right? So those are the things about positive responsiveness to need, to make them feel liked, valued, and supported. Third component have the things about like being reliable, I can always count on, always available, accept me unconditionally. So those are items really lump onto the sense of stability, which is super exciting for me when I see the data because, it's kind of like a convergence of the qualitative data and quantitative data both speak to the same thing. Next step, I'm trying to evaluate the POS psychometrics. So for this part, I used the sample 1 that I talked about, more convenient sample, as well as a sample 2, which is more representative, including 444 adults, have like much wider age range, balanced gender proportion, and pretty diverse race, ethnicity backgrounds. So as for the reliability, I tested internal consistency in both sample. So just a general kind of like a coloring thing here, the darker pink will be mostly for sample 1, the lighter pink for sample 2. So you'll see I tested the Corner batch alpha and McDonald omega for 3 subscales as well as the total scale. So total scale is the one that I circled out. So you'll see the psychometrics looks pretty good, especially the total scale. And I also did a small subsample tested reliability. So those are participants coming from the second sample, 3 months apart. This scale, I forgot to mention, is the perceived love by a specific person. So it is possible they mention different person at different times, right? So the subsample of 221 are the ones named the same person at both time points. So you'll see the reliability looks pretty good, especially the total scale, 0.83. Next, I'll show you the validity. For structural validity, I first test the intercorrelation among those subscales. As you can see in both samples, it's ranged from 0.5 to 0.7, very good, reasonable, moderate range because showing they're correlated with each other, but also have distinctiveness. And then I conduct a CFA in both sample and want to see the model fit to show the structural validity. So here I did both the 3 factor as what we find from EFA, right? And also I tried to just do 1 factor lump sum just to see if really 3 factor, print off better. So you will see the data really speaks to prefer 3 factor model because all the model fit indexes are much better in 3 factor than 1 factor, and all of them are at acceptable range. So next I looked at convergent validity, basically looking at how POS, the correlation between POS and other relevant measure in love, right? So here I have a list of like adult interpersonal acceptance rejection scale, which is kind of like the IPAR theory, talking about love expression, inventory of parent and peer attachment, IPA, right? Attachment, love, and then social supports questionnaire is 3 items, but it's really like the deep relationship sort of like support. And then compassion love scale, right? Love. So you see the correlation here, especially at the total scale level, because different people have different subscales, which makes sense. But if you look at the total scale, the correlation is like almost like 0.7, 0.8 across board, which is very impressive. So good conversion validity. Next, I also test the criterion validity test, because as I kind of like proposed at the very beginning, I conceptualize love as nutrient, right? So the goal is for it to predict well-being, right? We want to see if that's really the case. So here I have a long list of like both positive and negative indicators of well-being. Here, loneliness, satisfaction, positive, negative effects, flourishing, depression, anxiety, and resilience. And as you can see, for the whole giant table, except for one little cell at subscale level, that is not significant linked to the anxiety. All the rest are significant. And especially for the total scale level, you can see it's like in the small to moderate range, which I think pretty good, speaks a lot. Okay, so overall, I just want to give a quick summary of this study. As I just went through all the psychometrics of PLS, the 14-item PLS measure has pretty good psychometric properties, and also surprisingly good map onto the 3 components we identified from the qualitative data. So of course, this is just the first step for the measurement. We have a lot of things that we want to do as a next step. So I mentioned this is a PLS for specific person, right? Something else we really want to do and want to know more about is how to use PLS to measure general feeling, like not about a specific person, but how you feel loved in general. Think about general perception. That is the data I am collected already, and I'm still in the process to do analysis. The preliminary result is kind of showing it's more like a 1 factor of everything together than 3 factor being more distinct, because it's more like kind of like a general perception. But we'll see what turn out eventually. And next step, I want to, based on the information we get from the recipient's perspective, to develop a measure from the actor, right? Like what parents can do, what partner can do to make them feel loved. So it's another way to measure this, kind of like adaptation of the PLS. And then also, 14-item scale is not too long, but definitely a little bit long for ecological momentary assessment or daily diary, because it's intensive data collection, right? So in that case, I'm trying to see if there is a briefer version or some adaptation that I can do to make that be a thing I can use to measure at a daily basis or in EMA study design. And finally, I think that's really kind of like a big long-term goal, is like I want to do the cross-cultural and cross-developmental stage adaptation. So that's really one of the things I want to talk to Marta more about, the international collaboration about those things. But really, that's one of the things I want to keep moving forward to see, if the adaptation will work. So future direction, link back to why I propose love as a feeling from the recipient's perspective, because I want to see if that's a nutrient that is really need and help cultivate individual well-being. So next step, I want to see if that really turn out to link to a wide range of developmental and well-being outcomes. And if that's the case, this will be a great starting point to inform some intervention and practice design to promote individual positive development and well-being. So before I end, I just want to share a little bit extra here. This is the PLS measure that I'm using, except for the 14 item that I already showed in the previous slide. I have another question here. Ask them to name who is the person they feel being loved the most. So we have the initial and the relationship. And the thing I want to show very quickly is here. This frequency of what people mentioned, the person making them feel loved most. So mom, dad, partner, really kind of like the keywords here, and mom especially, right? So I just think it's fun to show. All right, so I want to say thank you to my graduate and undergrad research assistant to help me kind of like polish those wording, and thank you all for listening to this talk. So if you want to know more about my work, this QR code will link you to my website, and here's my information. Thank you. Okay, so Can I start sharing?
Thank you, Mengya. Very interesting. Very interesting and very robust characteristics of the scale. Very impressive. Do we have any questions, Fabio?
Yeah, hi, Mengya. Nice to meet you. It was very, very interesting for me because I've tried to do something like that like 5 years ago. I've included some perceived partner love in my scale that I've published. I have just one curiosity, it's just methodological one. Is there any reason why you didn't use the PLS passionate love scale for the convergent validity?
For which one? The PLS for which one?
The passionate love scale of
compassion
asking.
love. Yeah. So here's the thing. It's really not because of any reason for the measure itself. It's because for the first sample is college students and it's for credit. So we can put a lot of things in, right? For the second sample is a community sample. And, it's slightly different in terms of developmental stage because college students is like emergent out. The rest is like wider range age, age. So I'm trying to balance the length and try to, kind of like have a good blend of like replication, but also some other extra measure that I will be using. Of course, you don't want to collect data and just do one paper out. So I have some kind of like variation in the second set of data set. And that's the only reason I did not include that one.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Thank you, Mengya. All right. Oh, Marta's written one, or is she going to talk? Here we go. So somehow linked to Fabio's question, and I know I'm biased by the lenses of the triangular love scale, but what do you think about passion arousal? How would the PLS be related to perceived feelings of being desired in romantic relationships?
I think that's a very good question, and I would love to see how it turn out. But be honest, I don't have a very specific hypothesis because, one of the components that we talk about here is the stability, right? So you don't know how long, for example, the relationship duration, or at which stage they are perceiving love, right? Like if it's the initial stage, I think the arousal, passion definitely going to be high, peak, and they can be highly correlated. But at a later step, like later stage, if they kind of like turn more into sort of the companion love, it could have less correlation with each other. But who knows? Passion love can last longer, like Aaron did some study, right? So it's really kind of like an interesting exploratory question to look into next step.
Excellent. Thank you very much. All right, and we'll move on to the last presentation of the symposium, Fabio. And you're on mute.
Thank you, Adam. Sorry. So screen sharing and all right. Do you see my PowerPoint?
Yes, we do.
Okay, so nice to meet you. I'm Fabio Aghedu. I'm a researcher and now I'm professor. I'm teaching at the University of Clermont-Ferrand in France. So today I wanna to take you through the fascinating journey into the intricate dynamics between romantic love and sexual activity. Wait, okay. So how many times did you hear that sexual activity tends to decline as romantic love progresses? So this isn't just anecdotal, it's supported by numerous studies and research. However, despite this is a well-documented phenomenon, there has been relatively limited research that investigates the underlying causes. So what I will do is just bring you into deep exploration of this topic. I want to highlight that for our study, we have taken into account the Bode and Kushnik definitions of romantic love, which state that love is intended as motivational state and associated with cognitive, emotional, behavioral, societal, genetical, neural, and endocrine activity. So according to this definition, we can think that romantic love facilitates sexual activity. And among the component of romantic love, passion stands out as a significant driver of sexual activity. And we know that passion is mainly prominent during the early stages. So now various factors can influence sense of sexual frequency, such as cohabitation, religious belief, physical attractiveness, personality, medication, age, sustained passions, and also gender, BMI, education, ethnicity, sexual orientation, and relationship status. Some study, I want to be clear that some studies have already explored love and sexual desire and sexual activity, but they haven't explicitly developed into romantic love as we define in our study. So in order to understand more about sexual frequency, we collected data from romantic love survey in 2022 based on 720 participants, where young adults were being made in love, and they were in love since at least 24 in love for 24 months or less. And we select people that only showed that had sexual activity one more than 0 times per week. So our measures, we have an outcome variable, which was the sexual frequency. We measured the sexual frequency, asking people how many times per week did you have sex with the person you loved. And then we have some predictor variables that we take in basing on the literature. And so we selected the relationship duration, which was measuring months, and the romantic love, which was measuring the passionate love scales of Hatfield, and including the obsessive thinking. And then commitment, we take in the triangular love scale of Kowal and collaborators in 2022, and then we have measured the elevated mood with the hypomaniac checklist, included 32 items. So we also take into control some variables, which was the biological sex, the extraversion, sexual orientation, the self and partner mate value. Then if people were taking some psychotropic as SSRI, and if people were cohabitating, and if they have children. So we use hierarchical linear regression to test our hypothesis, which was the in terms of relationship duration, so was negative correlating with sexual activity, and romantic love was positive correlating, commitment negative correlating, and elevated mood positive correlating. So we conceived 5 steps of our hierarchical linear regressions. So in the first one, we included our covariate, and as you can see, is what the model was positive, but was explaining only the 3% of our variance. And as you can see, adding all our predictors, so relationship duration, romantic love, and commitment, and elevated mood, no one of our results was significant. This honestly was unexpected, that our variable wasn't explaining more variance. And as I said before, our regression model, which included 15 well-reasoned predictors, explained only the 3% of the variation in sexual activity. So in conclusion, we can say that the frequency of sexual activity was not predicted by any of our variable of interest, and the findings are quite surprising, and anyway they highlight how little is currently known about sexual activity and sexual desire among individuals that experiencing love. And I want to add that this study shed light on some aspects and maybe raised more questions than what it answered. Of course, there are some limitations, as Adam before explained, with sample, and romantic love can last many years, as many researchers before showed, but so our sample cannot be considered as representative of variety of romantic love. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Fabio. It looks like we've got a question from Caitlyn.
Yes.
This was really interesting, and I was not expecting those results either. I was wondering if you've thought about looking at health in general as well as energy levels as covariates. Because I'm wondering if someone has a different, like I know like women who have endometriosis or similar gynecological disorders tend to have a lower sex drive. And then also if, you know, two people were working very demanding jobs, it might not necessarily be they don't have the desire, but they might just not have the energy whenever that time finally does come around to actually engage in sexual activity.
Okay, so you mean energy in terms of like even accumulation of stress during the day, something like that?
Yeah.
I don't know if we have some measure like that in the survey 22. Maybe Adams can you help me to this question? I don't know if we have some measure of stress in our
So we
survey.
collected the quality of life survey, and that involves a question about energy levels. We also, in the elevated mood questionnaire, the amended hypomanic checklist, there is a question about energy as well. So there's definitely opportunities to look at that. Maybe we'll have a play and see if that brings up anything. In terms of physical health, just general physical health is the best we could do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Adam.
Janneke.
Janneke.
Thank you for your talk, Fabio. You expressed that it's surprising. I agree that it's quite surprising, these findings, but could you go into why you think that you got these surprising findings? Like, do you have any explanations for that? Is it maybe also quality over quantity, or what are your thoughts on this?
I have many thoughts because there are many variables that we have took into account. Honestly, I was expecting that at least to confirm that relationship duration was giving some results, because every day we heard people saying that after a while sexual frequency is decreasing. So it can be a lot of things. It can be our sample, and it can be that maybe there are some variables that we are biological variables that we are not taking into account, hormones, and and even how people, as I think love is a mix. I have a multidimensional concept of love. So is not maybe for some couples, even if they have sex, as we have a measure in our study that they had sex at least more than 0 per week. But some people have some configuration of romantic love that are very different. So, and sex sometimes is not a part of it. So it can depend of many things. So I think will be good to test people with some, maybe trying to see if we can compare people that same configuration of romantic relationship, like with and maybe a longitudinal study will be more satisfying sometimes to answer this question, to take into account more variables.
Can I just add, the Romantic Love Survey 2022 has been turned into a longitudinal study. So we're collecting data every 6 months, and they're exited if they break up with their partner. So we will be able to track sexual activity over up to 5 years.
Nice.
Cool.
I have a question. Did you examine the range in sexual frequency? So did you have any like outliers, or what did that look like?
Sorry, Bianca, I didn't hear the first part of the question.
Oh, what was the range in sexual frequency? The range. So, the average, and
Okay.
then were there any outliers? So people who were reporting very low numbers compared to the mean, or very high numbers?
I can take
Okay,
that
so
if you want, Fabio, because I'm
yeah,
familiar with
yeah,
the
of course.
data a bit more. So the range was in this sample was 1 to 20, and it was skewed. The mean was about 3 to 4, about 3.5 to 4, and the mode was a bit slightly higher than that. We did test for outliers using Mahela-Novus distances, but what it did was identified everybody who had children as an outlier, and we didn't want to exclude them because they're a genuine group, and that's useful data. So we didn't exclude any multivariate outliers, and I was disinclined to exclude people on the basis of extreme sexual behavior, because I'm pretty confident that's genuine variation in human sexual activity. There are people that when they fall in love have sex 20 times a week. I'm certain of that.
Yes, and did you control for age?
Yes.
Great, thank you. That was a great presentation. Thank you, Fabio.
Thank you, Bianca.
That looks like the end of the symposium. Thank you very much to all the presenters who came and presented. Hopefully everybody had a good time and learnt a little bit and has met some new faces. This is recorded, so I'm going to put it up on the YouTube channel. I'll let everybody know when that's done and give them the link. And I'll also be consulting with Marta and Fabio about the Student Presentation Award and be letting the successful winner know of that very soon. All right, thank you very much. Please sign up to the monthly update at loveresearch.info if it interests you. Stay in contact with the Love Consortium. They've got a conference coming up. We're going to do another annual symposium next year, so hopefully we'll see each other around. Thank you very much.
Bye, thank you.
Thank you.